Hi there, this is Mary. You can find me at ketogenicdietcoach.com. Thank you for watching this video. I am here to discuss with you a little bit about what happens when you go back to eating carbs after you've been in ketosis for an extended period of time. That would mean at least 6 weeks. So it takes at least 6 weeks to become fully keto adapted. And I know that some of you are experiencing what it's like to be in a keto adapted state and then transitioning back to carbs for a time and then trying to go back into keto. So this is a conversation that is one that you get to have with your body about how it's responding. And so it's really important that you tune in and listen to what your body has to communicate to you about that, because that's really going to be your best, most reliable resource for navigating how to recover from carbohydrate indulgence or even just a moment in time, or perhaps you just came back from your honeymoon. Perhaps you just came back from vacation. Perhaps you just went to the bachelor party weekend. So whether it's a one isolated incident or if it's an extended indulgence that you're having with carbohydrates, it's a relationship, okay? It's a relationship dynamic that needs tending to, just like any other relationship does. So I want to just invite you to look at how your body's responding, and based on that, we can put some pieces together that might help you, okay? So one of the things that I hear a lot is that people are struggling when they go out of ketosis and let's say they cheat or indulge in carbohydrates or partake of too many carbs, even if it's not a huge amount. The struggle in getting back into feeling the way they did before. And so I just want to address that. So if you are experiencing a challenge coming back into ketosis after you've been out for a time, it's time to really look at your body's capacity to respond to insulin. So although your glucose, your blood sugar levels may be perfectly fine in the normal range or even below, and you are producing ketones, why is it then that you might still be feeling tired, hungry, and gaining weight and really not seeing anything happen differently on the scale? So this can be caused from not the glucose, because the underlying cause of weight gain, which is what people tend to be struggling with the most when they come out of this state of carbohydrate loading, if you will, is the weight gain and not being able to get back to their original weight where they transitioned from. So what happens is your glucose is not the problem with your weight gain. Insulin is the problem. So weight gain is a metabolic, it's a hormone imbalance. It is not an issue with glucose. So although glucose is a reflection of how well your body may be coping with sugars, your glucose will tell you that. But what's more informative even is your insulin, which you're not going to be able to tell your insulin levels just by doing a blood sugar test, right? So you really want to do a fasting insulin, which will tell you your overall capacity to deal with insulin. And so if you are struggling coming back from eating carbs, it's probably because you are very, very insulin sensitive, or should I say resistant. So your cells are not responding to insulin. So what happens, you go out and you have some carbohydrates and your blood sugar goes up. Okay, you've been in ketosis, so you haven't had a fluctuation in your blood sugar perhaps for many weeks, right? And so your body starts to adapt to that, and it starts to relax, and your metabolism starts to basically go into a state of balance, which is a good thing. So when you disrupt that balance and you jack your blood sugar up with having some carbohydrates, more than your body can tolerate, it triggers insulin. Insulin is the inflammatory hormone, the main inflammatory hormone. So one of the other things that happens when your insulin goes up is not only does it trigger weight gain, because insulin is also the fat storage hormone, it's also the inflammatory hormone, the number one inflammatory hormone. So when you have carbohydrates, you are increasing your blood sugar, you are increasing your insulin. But let's say that you have your carbohydrate, you go to the bachelor party, you have a pizza and a beer, your glucose is going to go up, your insulin's going to go up, and then it should bring it back down. And then you could be able to stabilize again. But let's say day after day after day, you continue to indulge in carbohydrates. So your blood sugar levels continue to rise. Although insulin is bringing them back down, your insulin is being triggered over and over and over. And so you might have to look at how your body is responding to insulin, because if you are saturating your body with insulin, it is building up in your system, okay? And so that is continuing to be affected even when you take the carbohydrates away. So that's going to take some time to bring your insulin levels back down so that you'll stop triggering fat storage and inflammation, okay? So there's a couple things going on. When you go out and you have carbs, you need to know that it's not just affecting your blood sugar, but it's affecting your insulin, which is a deeper layer of the upstream root cause of metabolic syndrome, of all the complications with diabetes, with heart disease, with pretty much any inflammatory neurodegenerative disease. Okay, so you are triggering this hormone which hasn't been triggered in a long time if you've been keto adapted. So your body is now trying to compensate for that. And first you have to burn off all the glucose, all the sugars, all the carbs. Okay, they're hiding in your blood, in your liver, in your muscle tissue, wherever they want to go. So they have to be cleared out. Okay, that could take a week, 2 weeks, nobody really knows. And then your insulin can start to come back into a regulated state, you could say. So it's not hyper secreting. So your insulin, I don't know how long it will take. It depends on how insulin resistant you are, as to how long it will take you to come back into your normal ketogenic, keto adapted state where you're feeling like you're not hungry, you're producing enough ketones that it's suppressing your appetite, you have better energy, mental clarity, all the benefits of ketosis will begin to come back, but it may take some time. Okay, a couple things you want to make sure that you are watching out for is that when you go out to eat, if you're eating out and you're, socializing or celebrating and that sort of thing, anything you get that you're not making at home is going to have probably unhealthy oils in it, toxic, rancid plant extract oils, which are in every processed food, all fried foods, all dressings, sauces, everything that you would get out of your home in a restaurant, or whatever. So those are also highly inflammatory, and that may take a lot of more extra time to sort of metabolize those out of your bloodstream as well. Okay, those are the very fats that get stored in your liver and contribute to fatty liver disease and elevated triglycerides. Okay, so carbohydrates come in and they actually trigger this storage of fat and the unhealthy fats in the liver as well. And then you couple that with unhealthy oils and unhealthy plant fats that are extracted from seeds and nuts, and you have a double whammy. Then you add some sugar on that, some hydrogenated fats, and your body is dealing with a flood of toxins. So when you go out and celebrate or take the vacation or go on the trip and maybe do some carbohydrate indulging, it's usually not just carbohydrates that you're indulging in, okay? It might be alcohol, which is going to shunt your fat burning. It might be carbohydrates, which is going to really disrupt your insulin and glucose tolerance. Then you're also dealing with these unhealthy fats, okay? So if you're struggling, make sure that you're really looking at where your fats are coming from. And if you are stuck in a weight holding pattern, then I would suggest that you shift to primarily intaking coconut oil as opposed to the other options for fats, just for a short time. That can help to sort of boost the metabolism and get things sort of kickstarted again. Okay, so check your healthy fats, make sure you're eating only healthy fats, switch to coconut oil for a time, see if that doesn't help. Also, Another thing you can do is make sure that you're not getting too much fat. Okay, so there's a lot of things that can keep you from losing weight. It could be unhealthy fats, it could be too much fat. So remember that when you're burning your body fat for fuel, that is when you have some dietary fat coming in, but the rest of the calories are coming from your body fat stores. Okay, so if you are eating too much fat, you're never going to tap into your body fat stores. Even if you're in weight loss mode, you still need dietary fat every day, at least 3 tablespoons, maybe 5, 3 to 5, depending on how your macros are calculated. And you should be tracking your macros in Chronometer if you're not doing that. Okay, so you know exactly how much fat you need to lose weight and to maintain your ideal body weight. Okay, we're not talking about weight maintenance right now, just weight loss. So if you are needing to maintain your weight, you will be eating a lot more fat than you would if you're trying to lose weight. Okay, so check your fat, making sure that you're getting enough coconut oil, making sure you're not getting too much fat. Also, be sure that you are potentially implementing some intermittent fasting. Okay, and so that would mean fasting for at least 16 hours a day and eating for only 8, an 8-hour window each day will really, really help to bring your insulin sensitivity back and your glucose back into balance. Okay, more quickly burn off all the glucose that you have stored so that you can more quickly deal with the oversaturation of the insulin. Okay, so once that glucose level comes down, the insulin is going to come down as well, and that's really what you want, is to get that insulin to come down. All right. Another thing that can really trigger this fat holding pattern is, I mentioned it before, but I just want to say it again, too many toxins coming in. Okay, these can come from the unhealthy fats. Okay, foods like that are GMO, unhealthy meats that have antibiotics in them, and also hormones, growth hormones, and things like that. So be sure that you're eating clean, local, grass-fed meats and eggs and protein if you're eating animal-based proteins. Also, make sure that your sources of vegetables are always organic, that they are not GMO, and preferably biodynamic if you can find that. And so that you're not putting toxins into your body, because toxins have to go somewhere, and they love to be stored in your fat cells. Okay, so when you have a lot of toxins coming in, you are also you're providing a place for them to be stored. And so the actual fat storage is a warehouse for toxins. Okay, so you want to make sure that you're limiting as many toxins going in. Toxins also come in the way of anything that you're exposing your body to in the environment. Could be the water that you're drinking. Maybe you're drinking city water that's treated with hundreds of chemicals. Okay, maybe you're breathing unhealthy air, running or biking next to a street. Okay, take a walk in the woods, get some fresh air, open your windows, drink some spring water, dilute the toxins, dilute the acids with hydration and salts and water. Okay, so another way that can really trigger fat storage or fat holding pattern is to be eating too much dairy. Okay, so if the gut is inflamed, which many of us have an issue with leaky gut, and that's one of the things that I am working with people very diligently to heal their gut, but it often shows up in the way of eating too much dairy. And you might not have an upset stomach, you might not have any digestive upset, you might just have inflammation, which looks like weight gain or weight holding. Okay, so again, your body has to dilute those toxins with holding on to fluid and fat and everything else that it doesn't want to let go of. Okay, so when you can eliminate the toxins going in and you can start flushing them out, you're going to start seeing a difference on the scale. Okay, so check to make sure that you're not heavily reliant on dairy, because often dairy can create inflammation in the gut, which creates inflammation everywhere, and then you are just so inflamed that your body is not going to let go of any extra body weight. Okay. The other thing you want to check is that you are not over consuming protein. Okay. Too much protein will also kick you out of fat burning mode. It will also trigger insulin. So it's really easy to eat too much protein on a keto diet because you don't need very much. Okay, so make sure that you're tracking your macros. And I recommend that you set your chronometer profile settings to high fat ketogenic diet, number one. And the second thing is you want to set it on rigorous. So you can set your profile to be relaxed, rigorous, or moderate. I believe those are the options. So I think that it's best to set it on rigorous because it will only allow you a minimal amount of protein for your body weight, and it will calculate that for you. So you don't have to worry about trying to figure out how much protein you need. It does a really good job of calculating that for you when you put in your age, height, and weight. Okay, so be sure that your chronometer is set on rigorous, high-fat ketogenic, and make sure that your profile settings are all accurate. You might want to double check that, and then it should give you just exactly what you need every day. And so how are you going to know? People come in and ask me this all the time. How do I know how much of this to eat? How do I know how much of that to eat? You don't know unless you're tracking. There's no way that anybody can tell you how much you need or don't need of one food or another. So it totally depends on what you ate, what you're planning to eat that day. You can plan your meals and know exactly what to eat. And after a period of time, you probably repetitively consume the same foods anyway. So I'm not suggesting that you need to track in chronometer forever, but it's a great tool to get you started in the right direction so that you'll know, okay, I know I can have 2 ounces of fish and an egg and a protein shake. And that's pretty much all I need. Maybe a handful of nuts, maybe a piece of cheese. That's, these are trade-offs. So it doesn't mean that you can have all those things, even though they're all low carb. Maybe you can pick 2 or 3 in a day. Okay. Otherwise, you're going to be over your protein. You're going to be over your carbohydrate limit. So the last thing I want to say in closing is that everybody has their own carbohydrate limit. Okay. This is spoken to in numerous books. It's referred to as the carbohydrate threshold and other terminologies as well. But that's the one that you might have recognized in reading maybe The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Living. I know Dr. Stephen Phinney talks a lot about that. So anyway, your carbohydrate threshold is unique to you. So that means that how many carbs you can have is different from the amount of carbohydrates that I can have. And it's unique to every individual body type and chemistry and size and weight and insulin resistance and all of the genetics that play into this. Okay, so that's sort of the deeper layer of what's driving this this whole show, if you will. So we're not going to get into genetics, but what is underneath that is the expression of our genes, which is what we're seeing in these labs and in our testing and how we can affect our biochemistry with our diet and our lifestyle choices, right? So although we can't change our genes, we're half our mom and half our dad, we can change the way that they manifest, okay? And I've seen it, and I know that this is true. So I'm a huge fan of genetic testing so that we have a bigger picture of what's going on with you personally. But what is happening individually is not only the genetic coding, but also our own individual biochemistry that can be impacted. So you have a specific carbohydrate threshold or tolerance that is unique to you. And where I can maybe only have 25 grams of carbs a day to feel my best, you may be able to have 30 or 40 or 50 grams. Some people can do fine with 100 grams a day. Okay, so it totally depends. It's really important that you discover your own unique carbohydrate threshold. Okay, so if you set your chronometer on rigorous, it's going to only allow you to have 20 grams of carbs per day. So you'll know that maybe you can have a little more, but with the protein and the fat, those settings you will not want to exceed. Okay, the carbohydrate, if you're set on rigorous, you'll know that you could possibly go over a little bit and just see how your body feels. So this is an experiment between you and your body as to how it's going to respond. Okay, so you already know if you've gone out and indulged or celebrated or sort of slid off the rails a little bit and had too many carbs, you know how that is coming back in to ketosis, okay? And it can be really challenging. So if you want to speed that process up, one of the ways to do that is to target your gut, because chances are if you went out and indulged and ate out and had alcohol and other carbohydrates and bread and grains, you have an inflamed digestive tract, okay? And it is struggling, even though you might not feel like you have an upset stomach. You might not feel gas or bloating or indigestion or heartburn. But however, that doesn't mean that you didn't inflame your digestive tract, okay? And the first place to target is always your digestive tract, okay? So you can start by just doing a bone broth fast. Go back to square one. Start with the gut healing protocol that is outlined in my program, okay? This will take you right back to the first step. You could start just eating keto foods and being more diligent about what you do eat, and that's fine, but it might just take you a lot longer to get there. So you have options. You can go the most direct route, which is back to the gut healing protocol, or you can go the way that you know, just adding low carb, high fat foods daily and making sure that you're tracking your macros, and you will eventually get there. But again, if you want to speed that up, intermittent fasting, bone broth or gut healing protocol, okay? And also tracking your macros, right? Making sure you're not getting too much fat and too much protein. So I hope that that helps. I know that there's been a lot of questions about this, and it's a great question because we are really manifesting and living into this concept of balance, right? So if you go way over here and you're way off the deep end, you're going to have to compensate. So the pendulum has to swing the other way, okay? There's no way around that. If you pull back the pendulum and drop it, it's going to go the other way just as much as it went up on the one side, right? And so sometimes this takes a little bit of time for things to sort of trickle down and come back into a balance here in the middle. And many of you may realize during this experiment of going in and out of ketosis that you don't choose that on a regular basis because it's not worth it. All right? So I'm with you on that. I rarely can do that myself. And when I do, it's probably because I had a little bit too much nuts or some kefir or something like that. So I don't recommend that you binge on junk food, right? And you have to be mindful. So you can never really put the genie back in the bottle, okay? Now that you have had a deep healing experience with your body after going through the course, after going through the protocols that were outlined, that you're well aware of, you now have a different chemistry. You have a totally different biochemistry that you're working with in your body, okay? So you can't just go back to doing what you did and think that you're gonna feel like you did before you changed anything. It's a double-edged sword. So as much as it's a blessing that you are now have cleaned the house, you're healthier, you could say, more vibrant, more metabolically flexible. It's also self-limiting because you now feel much more deeply than you did before, and that's a good thing, okay? Because before you did things and your body didn't even respond in a way that would be indicative of there being an issue. So now you have a better communication with your body, and you now know something doesn't feel right because you want to get back to that clear place you came from, right? And you're having to struggle with that. But at least you remember what it was like so that you know you can get back and you know what it was like when you were there. So in the meantime, be sure to give yourself a break and know that this is an individual journey and that there are a lot of ways for you to maintain this balanced lifestyle. But know that you have to really be mindful, and your body is not the same body that it was. So it's going to react and respond differently now. And it's a self-regulating process. You don't have to know what foods you're sensitive to necessarily. Usually your body's going to tell you really quickly. If you've done the gut healing protocol, your communication system is finely tuned. It's kind of like a fast-moving race car, if you will, a well-oiled machine, a tuned up very, very efficient machine. Okay, your body now is. So just like a race car going 120 miles, if it hits a pebble in the road that might be just a small pebble, okay, it's a problem. It's a big problem when you hit a pebble going 120 miles an hour in a race car, okay? But if you hit the same size pebble in a slow moving Jeep, not a problem, okay? So before, you might have been able to tolerate a loaf of bread and a pizza and a beer, right? You were this slow moving Jeep down the trail, right? You could go over boulders and rocks and it was not a problem. But now you are not that. You are a fast moving, finely tuned machine. And if you hit that little pebble going at the high speed you're going at now, you're going to have an issue. Okay? So stay the course and good luck. And I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for watching this video. Namaste.